Most people think that you need a business, a side hustle, or to get lucky to become a millionaire. The harsh truth is that you can become a millionaire without any of this, and I know this is possible because I built a $1.5 million portfolio without a side hustle, without rich parents, and just with my 9 to 5. And today I'm going to show you how you can too. Now you might say that is impossible. There is no way that you can become rich with a 9 to 5. But here's the thing, you do not have to take my word for it. In 2024, Ramsey Solutions conducted the largest survey of millionaires. They interviewed 10,000 millionaires. For the purpose of this video, a millionaire is someone whose net worth is over $1 million. Sadly, I was not included in that study, but I digress. The study revealed some shocking things. Number one is that 8 out of 10 millionaires invested in the company's 401k. That's right, good old boring 401k plans. So next time you dismiss someone for investing in their 401k, think again. The second thing which I find shocking is that the top 3 careers for millionaires were engineers, accountants, and teachers. Now, full disclosure, I am an electrical engineer. Now, I know some of the people watching this video will say, well, I am a teacher, or I am an accountant, or I am an engineer, and there is no way I can ever become a millionaire. The results of this study are not an opinion. These are the results. And the truth of the matter is that results do not care about anyone's feelings or opinions, including my own. So I am just sharing the findings. Now, in order for me to become a millionaire, I had to learn 2 things, and this is very critical. If you ever want to become a millionaire, if you ever want to build wealth, you have to do these 2 things. Number 1, you have to believe that it is possible for you. Just like I did, I had to believe that it was possible for me. Not simply that it was possible, but that it was possible for me. You see, a lot of people will say, I cannot become a millionaire. And then you really have to ask yourself, why not? Are your stories valid, or do you want to believe them because it is easier to stick to your story so that you can declare yourself a victim? Guys, you can be a cynic if you want, but that will only keep you broke and miserable. Everything, and I mean everything worthwhile, starts with a belief. You have to believe that it is possible for you to get out of debt and build wealth over time. The second thing that I had to learn when it comes to building wealth is that there are 2 things that you can control. Number 1 is your income. Now let's put that in a scale right here. Number 2 is your expenses. Let's put that on this side. If you have a low salary and you think that the answer is to make more money, which by the way is very, very popular advice, then I would have to tell you that you would be wrong. You might say, what? Let's think of it this way. A large percentage of high earners live paycheck to paycheck. That's because too many people suffer from lifestyle creep. In other words, as their salaries go up, their expenses go up. Bigger homes, brand new cars, bigger trucks. And I find that very hilarious that people think that because they got promoted, they deserve a new car. And by the way, just fun fact, I did the same thing after my first race. On my first job, guess what I did? I had a perfectly working car, very nice car. And the first thing I did was to go out and buy a brand new Hyundai. Out of all the cars that I could have gotten, I did get a Hyundai Santa Fe, brand new. So I understand that feeling that you think you deserve to upgrade your lifestyle every time you get paid more. But in order to build wealth, we have to create a margin between our income and our expenses. So the logical question is, how do we create that margin regardless of income? The first thing I did was to get rid of my credit card debt. I used to be a moron, and I used to think that it was cool to swipe a card and just buy stuff. But over time, I learned that credit card debt is really designed to keep you poor. Credit cards have high, and I mean high interest rates. And the issue is that they give you easy access to money that you don't have to buy things that you basically can't afford. Because if you did, you wouldn't need to use your credit card. I don't think we need to dive deeper into this. Just having credit card debt is like trying to run a marathon with a 100-pound vest on you. Now, someone might be able to do it, but I think that most of us cannot. So if you have credit card debt and you want to build wealth, get rid of it. Use the snowball method or the avalanche, and don't be afraid to negotiate rates and balances with those companies. The next thing I did was to stop buying things on credit. I know this is very related to having credit card debt, but this is really important because a lot of people will get out of credit card debt only to go back into it. Now, just for transparency, I am not against using credit cards when you have the discipline to do so. Now, I mean, I use my credit card for everything, but the difference today is that I know where my money goes and I pay the full balance at the end of each month. The next thing I did to create margin was to simply stop buying things I didn't need. Do you need 10 pairs of shoes? Do you need a brand new car every 3 years? I mean, really think about the things that you buy, because are these things necessary, or am I buying things just to fit in or to impress people? I used to buy a lot of stuff and go to places just to impress people. The funny thing is that every time I think about this, I realize that I was impressing no one and I was just throwing money away. And just on a personal note, at some point I realized that a lot of my spending came from trying to prove something to other people. But the harsh reality is that none of the people you and I know are gonna pay our bills. And another thing is that buying things doesn't make you rich. I mean, yes, buying nice things gives you some sort of happiness, but that's usually very, very temporary. Now, the third thing that I did to create a bigger margin, this is critical because I believe that this is a big reason why people stay broke, even when they are making more money. This is what I call keeping up with the Joneses. It's lifestyle creep. And it goes something like this. Every time you get a raise or you get more money, you go and increase your lifestyle. You buy a bigger home, you get a new car, you go to nicer places, and there's nothing wrong with any of this. But if you're making money and you're also spending more, you never create a margin, and so your income minus your expenses continues to be zero or the same it was before, and as a result you can't even get ahead or build any wealth. Those were the main things I did to get started. Now, how do you actually get rich? What did I do to build a large portfolio? Now, here's the biggest secret. Something that no one told me in school, and I have a master's in finance, and believe me, no one mentioned it. And at the time, we didn't even have YouTube. I know, I've been around for a few years, so I learned this the hard way. See, Jim Rohn once said, poor people pay their bills and spend money on things they don't need, then they save money and invest. Now, that is if there is any money left. Many people just have too much month at the end of the money. Now, have you ever been there? I have. You're hoping for the next paycheck so that you can pay bills again. But then Jim Rohn said, look, rich people pay themselves first, then they pay their bills. In other words, they decide how much they are going to save and how much money they will invest, and that's what they prioritize. I should warn you that that doesn't mean that people who are doing well don't pay bills. Not at all. They simply prioritize their savings and investments over their bills. And this is the secret to building a large portfolio. This is exactly what I did many years ago when I first started. I decided to save and put at least 10% of my earnings into a high yield savings account. And then I decided to put at least 15% on my 401k. Now, some people recommend more, some people recommend 25%. Now I was making good money and I decided to also start buying my company's stock. See, back in those days, I worked for a company that was giving me 10% discount on every share that I bought. So to me, that was a great deal. I was thinking, well, I better get into this. I get a 10% discount. And I grew that portfolio to a pretty big number. Now I ended up walking away with a lot of money. And the funny thing is that when I think about it, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just putting money away without really knowing where it was going. I just invested into a brokerage account. I invested into my 401k and I was sending money to a savings account. I mean, this is simple stuff. And the truth is that you already know everything that you need to know to become a millionaire. But the key is to automate everything. See, nowadays, whenever I get paid, 10% of my take-home pay goes to my savings account. 10% right now goes to my Roth IRA, and another 10% goes to just the general taxable brokerage account. The rest of the money that I make goes to expenses, and about 25 to 30% goes to vacations and things that we want to buy. As Rami Sethi would say, guilt-free spending. I am at a different stage with different goals now, but if I was in my 20s or even 30s, I would get rid of credit card debt first, build an emergency fund to 3 to 6 months of expenses, and then I would start investing 5 to 10% of my salary or more into my 401k. I would try to put the maximum amount of money I can in my 401k in those early years. Now, if your salary doesn't allow you to do that, my recommendation would be for you to think of this as a marathon. Contribute enough so that you can get the employer's match. Depending on your employer, that could be anywhere from 5 to 9%. That's literally free money. So don't leave that on the table. Now, after that, I would contribute at least 5% of my paycheck to a Roth IRA. If there's anything after I pay all my expenses and my fund money, I would put the rest into a taxable brokerage account. Guys, becoming a millionaire is not hard, but it takes discipline, time, and most importantly, delayed gratification. And it can only be done if you believe that it is possible for you. Now, at the beginning of this video, I said that there are two things we can control when it comes to our finances: our income and our expenses. If we can control our expenses, then we have won half the battle. Now, I didn't talk about making more money because if you cannot create a margin between your expenses and income, then you'll never get ahead. It doesn't matter how much money you make and how many races or businesses or side gigs you come up with. It won't matter because you will never be able to build that margin to live below your means. And if you can't do that, then you'll never be wealthy. But if you build the habits to create that margin, then you can work on increasing your income. And that is something that I have done over the last few years. And if I could go back in time, I would do what I just outlined, and I would do some freelancing so I can make an extra 500 or even 1,000 extra a month. Now you might say, well, I can't do that. How can I come up with this? Look, young people, yes, you have skills I didn't even have at your age. I believe you have skills that will give you extra income. But even if you do not, then go and get them so that you can get paid more. And then your percentages, your contributions will be higher over time, because just remember that to grow your money, you need time and you need to consistently invest over a long period of time. Time is your best friend. And honestly, I want to remind you that you can't get it back. So if you're young, take advantage because it will pay off. Now, the last thing I will say is that you can live a great life and use some of your investments before you're 59 and a half. Now, to do that, you have to be more strategic and not dump all of your money into retirement accounts. In fact, I didn't have a 9 to 5 for the last 3 years. Do you know how I did it? I used some of my investments and savings to do so. And I chose to do that. So my point is, you don't have to wait until you're 60 to use all of your investments. I will balance things out, contribute to my future, and then make some short-term investments so that I could use some of it well before I'm 60. Money for fun stuff. If I didn't want to do that, then I would just save money and buy the stuff that I want, while at the same time investing and putting money for the future. Some people will say, well, you only live once. Yeah, but what if you live a long time? Will you be able to support yourself and have a great life in your 40s, your 50s, or your 60s? My name is Marlon Argueta. Have a good day and week, and I will see you in my next video.